The coffee was bitter. It always was from this particular machine in our building's lobby, a relic that hissed and gurgled like a discontented stomach. But it was a ritual, this Tuesday morning cup. The bitter tang felt like a truth serum, a jolt to the system before facing the spreadsheets that comprised my professional life. I was an archivist for a small historical society, my world one of careful cataloging, dust motes dancing in library light, and the quiet certainty of facts preserved in ink and parchment. I liked order. I needed it. Back in our apartment, a sleek, minimalist box in a neighborhood that had gentrified around us, the silence was a living thing. Mark had left early for his consulting firm, a whirlwind of crisp cologne and murmured promises to be home by 7. We'd have salmon. He'd chosen the recipe. I'd nodded, already mentally compiling my to-do list. Settling at the kitchen island, the morning sun cutting a sharp geometric shape on the polished concrete, I opened my laptop. Payday was Friday, but a phantom itch, a financial phantom limb, had me logging into our joint account. I was the meticulous one, the budget keeper. Mark was the big picture earner, the one who handled the investments, the growth side of things. It was a balance, or so I'd believed. The page loaded. I took a sip of bitter coffee, my eyes scanning the familiar columns. Direct deposit from the Historical Society, the automatic mortgage payment, the utilities. Then I blinked. The available balance was wrong. It was catastrophically wrong. $4.22. A cold wave starting at the base of my skull washed down my spine. This was a mistake, a system glitch. I refreshed the page. The digits, pitiful and stark, didn't change. My heart began a slow, heavy thud against my ribs. Our emergency fund, our savings for a future kitchen renovation, the comfortable buffer we'd built over 6 years of marriage, gone. The transaction history was a desert. No large withdrawals were listed. Just the usual trickle of daily expenses. And then, nothing. An emptiness. Panic, sharp and metallic, flooded my mouth. I should call Mark. My thumb hovered over his contact. Mark, home, with a little heart emoji I'd added in a fit of newlywed sentimentality. But my hand froze. A strange, new instinct, cold and clear as ice, overrode the panic. Don't. The feeling was so foreign it was almost audible. In all our years, we'd been a team. We'd weathered career stresses, a miscarriage that had left us both hollow and quiet for a year, the slow, subtle drift from passionate lovers to comfortable, if somewhat distant, roommates. But finances? We were solid, weren't we? Calling him felt like showing my cards in a game I didn't yet know we were playing. If it was a mistake, he'd fix it. If it wasn't, I needed to know what I was dealing with first. The archivist in me, the seeker of primary sources, the untangler of mysteries, stirred. This was a puzzle, a terrible, life-altering puzzle, but a puzzle nonetheless. I started with what I knew. Our main savings were in a separate, linked money market account. I navigated to it. Empty. A series of transfers, each just under $10,000, neat, discrete amounts unlikely to trigger automatic fraud alerts, had bled it dry over the past 3 months. The destination was another account, one I didn't recognize. The account number was a string of meaningless digits. For hours, I moved in a silent, focused frenzy. I called the bank, posing as Mark with a voice lowered an octave, claiming I'd lost the details for the linked external account. The customer service rep, after verifying security details I knew by heart, his mother's maiden name, the street he grew up on, was helpful. That's the account ending in 8891, sir, under the name Celestial Horizons, LLC. Celestial Horizons. It sounded like a New Age spa or a dubious investment fund. A Google search yielded nothing but a bare-bones, recently registered LLC in Delaware, a shell. My fingers, now cold despite the sun-warmed apartment, flew across the keyboard. I pulled up our credit card statements, ones Mark primarily used for business. I'd always given them a cursory glance, trusting him. Now I dove deep. Amidst the charges for client dinners, software subscriptions, and gas stations, patterns emerged, like faint tracks in dust. A boutique hotel in the city, the Luminary, on a night he'd told me he was at a team-building retreat in Connecticut. The receipt was emailed. I logged into his email. The password was still the name of our first dog, a golden retriever named Sam. My stomach turned. There it was, a confirmation for a deluxe king room at the Luminary. And another, and another. Roughly every 3 weeks, like clockwork. Then the restaurant charges. Not the sturdy steakhouses he took clients to, but intimate, dimly lit places with names like Saffron Alley and the Gilded Lily. 2 covers, wine, always wine. The most damning evidence, however, wasn't in the hotels or the meals. It was in the digital breadcrumbs he'd forgotten to sweep away. A forgotten Amazon account, logged in on our shared living room tablet. I opened it. The order history wasn't for books or gadgets. It was for lingerie. Silk, lace, in sizes that weren't mine. A perfume I didn't wear, Black Orchid, its description promising unapologetic sensuality. A delicate necklace with a crescent moon pendant, delivered to a P.O. box I didn't recognize. Each discovery was a physical blow. I sat on the cold floor, my back against the kitchen cabinets, the laptop's glow the only light as the sun set, plunging our sterile apartment into gloom. The pieces were assembling into a horrifying, undeniable picture. The money wasn't stolen. It was being siphoned. The empty accounts were a symptom, not the disease. The disease was my marriage. But why the massive systematic transfers to Celestial Horizons? Blackmail? A bad investment he was hiding? The archivist needed the final document, the smoking gun. I waited until deep in the night, the city sounds a distant hum. Mark's phone, password protected, lay charging on his bedside table. He slept the heavy, untroubled sleep of the guiltless, or the profoundly deceitful. Using a trick I'd read about in a true crime forum, the irony wasn't lost on me, I held his thumb to the sensor while he slept. It unlocked with a soft click that sounded like a gunshot in the silent room. In the bathroom, with the door locked and the fan on for white noise, I scrolled. His messages were mostly work-related, but there was a thread, buried, with no name saved, just a moon emoji. The texts were a gut punch of intimacy I hadn't felt from him in years. Moon, I miss your hands. This week feels like a year. Mark, you have no idea. Counting the hours until Thursday. The usual place? Moon, of course. Did you bring the thing we talked about? Mark, it's handled. The transfer went through. This keeps us safe, my love. Keeps you comfortable. Moon, I know, it's just a lot to always be a secret. I want more. Mark, soon. I'm untangling things. She suspects nothing. She. The word was a shard of glass in my heart. I was she, the oblivious wife, the budget keeper in her empty, expensive apartment, while he paid for a secret life. The transfers. They weren't for a business or blackmail. They were an allowance, a payoff. Hush money, wrapped in the guise of providing for a future he was building with someone else. He was funding her apartment, her life, her silence, with our money. The money from my careful budgeting, our shared sacrifices. A violent, silent sob shook me. I clamped a hand over my mouth. The pain was seismic, a rending of my entire reality. But beneath the pain, something else solidified. A furious, glacial calm. He had not just broken my heart. He had vandalized our shared history, turned our partnership into a ledger of lies. He had made me a fool. I took screenshots. I forwarded emails to myself. I documented every transfer, every hotel receipt, every intimate text. I compiled it all into a digital folder I labeled Evidence. The archivist was preserving the record of her own marriage's annihilation. The next day, I moved like an automaton. I called a locksmith and had the locks changed. I packed his suits, his shoes, his cherished vinyl collection into black garbage bags and boxes I got from the grocery store. I left them neatly stacked in the hallway outside our apartment door. It was undignified, but so was what he had done. At precisely 7:02 p.m., his key fumbled in the lock. It didn't turn. I heard a soft curse, then a knock. "Ella, the lock's stuck." I opened the door. He stood there, handsome in his tailored coat, a faint, confused smile on his face. His eyes went past me to the bags in the hall. "What's all this?" "Your things," I said, my voice eerily steady. "You'll need them." His smile vanished. "Ella, what's going on? Is this about the account? The bank called me about some weird login. I was going to talk to you." "Celestial horizons," I said. The words hung in the space between us. All color drained from his face. It was the confirmation I didn't need, but was grimly satisfied to see. The luminary, Saffron Alley, Black Orchid. I recited them like an indictment. The moon emoji. He took a step back, as if physically pushed. "Ella, it's not what you think." "It's exactly what I think," I said, the calm beginning to crack, a tremor of raw fury entering my voice. "You emptied our life. You paid her to be your secret. You lied to me every single day. You looked me in the eye and promised me salmon." The absurdity of that last detail, the sheer domestic banality of his betrayal, finally broke me. A hot tear escaped, tracing a path down my cheek. I didn't wipe it away. "Please," he whispered, reaching out, "let me explain. I can fix this." "There is no fix," I said, stepping back out of his reach. "The only thing you can do is leave. Your lawyer can talk to my lawyer. Do not call me. Do not text me. You are no longer welcome here. You are no longer welcome in my life." I closed the door. The sound of the bolt sliding home was the most definitive, final sound I had ever heard. I heard him stand there for a long moment, then the shuffle as he gathered the bags. Then silence. I slid down the back of the door onto the floor, the same floor where I'd sat the night before. The apartment, which had never truly felt like a home, now felt like a cavern, empty of him, empty of our money, empty of the future I'd believed in. But it was also empty of lies. The days that followed were a brutal montage of legal meetings, freezing joint accounts, and the hollow-eyed business of uncoupling a life. Friends were shocked, divided. Some offered unwavering support. Others, subtly, wondered if I'd driven him to it. I let their words wash over me. I had the evidence. I had the truth. The divorce proceedings were swift and merciless. The evidence folder did its job. Mark, faced with the meticulously documented trail of his deception and financial dissipation, had little leverage. I got the apartment, which I promptly sold. I took half of what was left in the retirement accounts, the ones he hadn't found a way to plunder. It was a fraction of what we'd had, but it was mine, untainted. I used part of it to rent a small, sun-drenched studio in a less polished part of town. It had character, creaky floors, a fireplace that didn't work, and walls the color of warm butter. I filled it with second-hand books, a robust plant I couldn't kill, and the quiet that was no longer oppressive but peaceful. One afternoon, months later, I was unpacking a box of my old things from the Historical Society, notes from projects I'd loved. A faded, sepia-toned photograph of an unnamed woman from the 1920s slipped out. She stared boldly at the camera, her hair bobbed, her eyes clear and unafraid. On the back, in faint pencil, was written, "She rebuilt." I propped the photo on my new desk. I looked at my laptop, open to a fresh document. I was no longer an archivist of other people's pasts. I was the author of my own future. The ledger was empty, but it was clean, and I alone would decide what to write in it next.